Hey guys, Casual Crono here. I've been going through my super bosses that I've not yet defeated, and I realized that Death Eater Lindwyrm was one of the bosses that I have not completed yet. He has 4 fights, I guess it's a he, and I am on the last fight. And these fights are not repeatable, unfortunately, so I don't know if I recorded any older fights back in the day. Like, I was doing these fights months ago, if not in 2024 at some point. So I'll have to look through and see if I have any recorded versions. But the 4th fight is what I'm about to do now. And I haven't really watched any videos. I mean, it's an older boss. I know a lot of people have defeated him. And it's now June 2025. They've increased the damage cap for DPS characters, so this boss probably isn't quite as difficult now as he used to be a long time ago. But I am on the wiki right now, and I'm going to start off with an empty AF gauge. And if he takes any other type damage besides earth type damage, his physical and magical resistance will boost by 90%. And at the start of the turn, he reduces crit rate. End of turn, he restores some health. It looks like he will also drain someone's MP at the start of the fight. And on the first turn only, he will try to petrify my team. And then he has an assortment of magic, water attacks, fixed damages, remove buffs, that kind of stuff. He has an HP stopper at 1%, which he will consume one of his life points and restore all of his health. And he has just shy of 1 billion. He has 900 million health. So to counter some of these abilities, I've chosen my Null Magic team. The description said his Death Eater Dragon Cloak, the physical magic 90% buff, activates when taking type damage other than Earth. Xianhua does not do type damage. She does magic damage, but it's not associated with an element. She's not a shade user or crystal user or anything, so she does not do type damage. Secondly, Horizon ignores target defenses, so if I accidentally do type damage at some point and his physical and magic resistance shoot up to 90%, it shouldn't matter. Horizon treats that defense as 0 no matter what. So I'm thinking that Xianhua will be able to kind of bypass some of those mechanics. Now, other things I read, it mentioned that he did stone petrify. So I gave her a stone resistance badge. I only have 2. I gave Iffy the other stone resistance badge, which dropped her health down to 4,800, which I'm not too thrilled about. But, you know, I don't want the 2 of them to get petrified. I want her to be able to do her revive ability if necessary. So that means Mayunfa or Yakumo AS could get petrified at any time. Next, to counter the fact that one character is going to be drained of their mana, I have Kumos, who naturally restores MP at the end of every turn. Because I don't have a dedicated healer, I also gave him a healing jewel. So at the end of each turn, he'll restore some health. I don't think my healing jewel is maxed out all the way. Oh, no, it is. 10. So he will restore... Actually, I think Kumos is a she, according to the character quests. I have to look that up. We're going to go with she. I was kind of surprised when I saw it. So she will restore health and MP at the end of each turn, and technically reduce the boss's speed at the end of each turn for whatever that's worth. I don't know if I'm going to get to the point where I need the charge attack. When the Death Eater takes magic damage, its damage will be reduced by 30%, so hopefully that will help keep my team alive. It also reduces the Death Eater's magic resistance, but again, Horizon is always already treating magic resistance as 0, so reducing it further I don't think is going to help. Oh, and then I chose Gunts for the other sidekick, because when the AF gauge is empty, everyone's stats gets boosted by 20%. So Xianhua's intelligence, for example, will be boosted by 20%. And the Death Eater drains the AF gauge immediately, so his aura will be in effect the whole fight. So that was the logic between those for those two sidekicks. I have my Unfa. She is not equipped with an attack skill, though technically her only attack is an Earth type attack, so I could have given her an attack skill for, what good a small attack skill would do, but I'll do my best. Her prayer, which I may or may not use, because the second she takes damage, the prayer is going to end. But please, I use all the time with Xianhua. It improves her damage, weapon type damage by 50%, stacks spoiling, and that damage buff increases even more once spoiling is on there. So I'll be using please and keep me safe to try and beef up the party's defenses. Xianhua has Horizon, Trinity, Link, and Tesseract. I doubt I'll use Tesseract. Iffy. Again, to avoid the chance of doing a type attack, I removed Icrophilia and I gave her Herlania, which does give her status immunity and grants her a shield. So she's a little more survivable. So the thought is Rosa Liliac for pain, Nocturnal Procession for a buff, and Herlania to help keep her alive. And we have Yakumo. Now he has some type attacks as well, which I'll use if I have to, because Crunch Time, when used, will give the party a shield equal to his consumed MP times 10, and it's a maximum 5,000 point shield. And if you can get his... I don't know if I can get all 5,000, because it's based on... it consumes 100 plus 10% of his max MP. Well, his max MP right now is 3,800. So if we go back to that skill, Crunch Time. So 100 plus 386 would be 486 times 10. So right now, without any buffs, his shield would give me 4,860, not quite 5,000. But if I can buff his MP at all, then I should be able to give the team a 5,000 point shield. That said, he'll do type magic in the process, which will beef up the Death Eater's resistances. So assuming that Horizon works the way I think it works, it shouldn't matter if I use Crunch Time, but I will use it probably later in the fight. He has Overwork, which will improve party's int, speed, and improve max MP, which means once I cast Overwork, then I'll have the maximum shield. So that's kind of my plan with him. He doesn't have Rage, unfortunately, so I can't redirect damage to him. Back row, I have low HP, 8, and Enhance of max HP, and Power of Void, all to try and buff up Xianhua. And then Fine has Power of Awakening, Resonant Power Shadow, Power of Offense Magic, and then I couldn't find anything for the final slot, so I noticed that the Death Eater reduces power and intellect. So I threw in, I'm assuming the physical magical debuff resistance is the same thing, like it protects against the power int debuff. They renamed all of these resistances, which actually are a lot better now, I think. Stat debuff, very clear. Physical magic, pretty clear. Type debuff, pretty clear on what it does. So if I'm interpreting it right, I'm giving everyone a 15% chance to resist the int debuff that Death Eater does. But that is the team. I can't repeat this fight if I win it, so I can't try other options. Offhand, well, I guess I'll talk about potential other options if I beat the boss. So I probably tried him months and months ago and probably died horribly. So I don't know how many times this is going to take. But to get to the Death Eater, you enter... Well, the easiest way now, if you go to Vanward Camp and go to Terrawing Plateau, up there at the top is the God Spike. And when you get to the God Spike, you should be able to summon him using Sazanka's Incense. Alright, here we go. Death Eater, I believe it is his 4th form. Alright, we are going to take a look. We have Awakened Zone. I'm just curious what Horizon will do. And let's give the party... And she can't do much without any mana. Looks like Horizon did a decent amount of damage. So now we'll Nocturnal. Let's do a Please, because if she takes any damage, she'll stop praying. Alright, that's the first life point. Alright, let's just Horizon. We did Please. You know what? Let's just go ahead and pray. Status immunity.
Your mistake.
Here's the second life point. Alright, we'll keep going with Horizon, I guess. Redo Rosa Liliac. If I use Crunch Time, that will deal shade damage. But that will also give all of my party a 5,000 health shield. Looks like we are out of Magic Zone too. You know what? I don't think I have a way to redo Magic Zone. I guess we'll do Link. I kind of liked doing Horizon over and over again. Let's see. Well, let's just keep doing Horizon and see what happens. We could always Stellar Burst to redeploy a zone, so... You know what? Horizon is supposed to ignore defenses, so even if it buffs up its magic defense, it shouldn't matter. Let's do Keep Me Safe. Okay, there goes another life point. There's the shield. Oh, that hurt. Alright, well, it was nice while it lasted. Thank you, Mayunfa, for your service. Let's go ahead. Deploy the magic zone. Kind of want a Horizon. Just keep attacking, basically. Yeah, let's just do it.
Enlightenment is the key to unwavering truth.
We now have a magic zone and a hurt enemy. So we will Nocturnal Procession and we will Overwork.
Go.
Close. I guess we'll do another Horizon. If I can. Yep. Alright. Rosa Liliac. Guess we'll do a Crunch Time again.
Feast.
Alright. That worked. A little messy. But that was doable. And there's the almighty power Dragon Killer Grasta. Alright, I've returned to Space-Time Rift, healed up. Let's take a look at the team. Okay, so the biggest issue when I make videos is I remember watching videos on YouTube and going, oh, that's a great strategy, but I don't have Yakumo, because that happened to me for many, many years. You know, so obviously this setup wouldn't work if you're missing one of the characters. Or maybe you don't have the latest and greatest Grasta. Or maybe you're missing some of the sidekicks. So I can't repeat the fight, so I can't say for certain this would work. But this is just my thoughts, having, you know, had various characters in my Null Magic team for a while, and, you know, having other sidekicks in the past. So let's start with the sidekicks. Kumos and Gunts obviously worked for this strategy. Other possibilities. Tetra is always a good choice. Tetra will heal at the end of every turn, restore statuses, so if you get stoned, it will restore you back to fighting shape, so Tetra is always a great choice. Tetra and Gunts I nearly went with, but when I saw that the Death Eater wiped out magic, I thought, well, maybe I should include Kumos in there. So Tetra would probably be a good choice. Other kind of outside-the-box choices, Iridian does provide a small MP regen. Doesn't heal quite as much, but does provide an end-turn heal as well, but does not restore statuses. So if you just need someone to heal and MP regen, Iridian, a free sidekick, might work. And finally, I would argue that this is a bad choice, but it's not an incredibly bad choice. Kurobo. So this fight hinges on Xianhua doing non-type damage and the fact that Horizon reduces defenses to 0. So even if you trigger the boss's aura, Horizon should not be affected. If you have Kurobo, if something takes fire damage, their power and intellect is permanently reduced by 25%. Now, we saw the boss doing like 60 and 70,000 damage, so reducing its intellect by 25% probably will not make you survive those hits. I guess if the magic zone runs out and, you beef up your defenses, maybe. But if you have Kurobo and you have Iffy, you can trigger his aura using Hypnophobia, a fire type attack. Is it going to be helpful? I don't know, but it is a possibility. So, and on that note, if you have Iffy but you don't have her 80 Shadow, obviously I did not deploy Shade Zone. I did not have to restore the blood contracts. That would be the skill I would leave out. So sidekicks, obviously what I had worked, but there are other options, some better than others. Next, reserves. Just so happens that my 2 reserve staff users, Palm has 200 light and Fine has over 200 shadow, which means I have the benefit of having 8 total Grasta slots. If you do not, because I would watch lots of videos where people have like 255 light or 255 shadow, and I'm like, well, that is great for them, but doesn't help me. If you are only limited to 6 Grasta slots, I would probably stick with these 6. Power of Void Staff is a given. Enhance at low and max HPs are pretty easy to get. There are 3 enhance max HP staff Grasta, and as we saw in the fight, Xianhua was able to stay at max health for a lot of the fight. So those were kicking in. Resonant Power Shadow improves damage for every shadow ally. That's its only condition. So as long as you have mostly shadow characters in the front row, it should be kicking in. And if you are far enough along in the storyline, Power of Offense Magic is pretty easy to acquire as long as you're in Magic Zone. It doesn't have to be awakened. It's a guaranteed 15% damage boost. So those would probably be the 6 that I would choose if you don't have Resonant Power Shadow, because that one's kind of hard to get. But you do have some of the other Grasta that I used. For example, Power of Awakening Staff. That might be a thought. Or you could, if you do have all 3 of the Enhance if max HPs, wherever there's 1. Oh, maybe there were only 2. Okay. Maybe that's a different weapon type I was thinking. One of them there's 3, but... So, that would probably be my substitute, Power of Awakening Staff. As long as you can keep the Magic Zone awakened. Alright, the characters themselves. Xianhua is required for this. If you don't have Xianhua, this strategy will simply not work. The fact that she has a non-type attack, the fact that it ignores defenses, so even if it triggers the aura, it should not be affected. And if the enemy has a lot of health, she attacks again. I mean, she's just amazing. So that is the requirement for this strategy. If you don't have Xianhua, can't do it. Now, I did not use her Stellar skill. If you have Xianhua, but she's not Stellar Awakened, yeah, you're going to lose out on some extra stats and stuff like that, but I didn't use Tesseract at all. So even when I Stellar Burst, so, she might be a little weaker, but that is a possibility as well. To make up for that, instead of giving her the Stone Resist, you could give her an Int badge to make up for some of the lost Int, and rely on someone like Tetra or someone else to restore statuses. So Xianhua is required. The other 3, I kind of want to say, are optional. Iffy was very helpful when Myunfa got beat up the first time, knocked out. Her revive kicked in. So Iffy is helpful in that regard. She was also the pain setter and buffer. Yakumo, with his overwork, was extremely helpful. Crunch Time provided me with some shielding, and then his Stellar Burst allowed me to redeploy an awakened Magic Zone. So that was all very helpful as well. Myunfa was probably the least helpful of the 4. If you don't have Myunfa, I think this is very doable. What she brought to the table I did pray, though she got knocked out, I think, the very next turn, so the prayer didn't last very long. Please was helpful. It stacked spoiling on Xianhua and improved her damage. And then I did cast Keep Me Safe, but when the boss is doing 70,000 in damage, a 30% type resistance is not going to make you survive. So I don't think Xianhua is required for this fight. If you don't have her, great. If you do, obviously she is useful. So replacement characters. If you don't have some of those characters, other characters that might work. If you have Yuna, Stellar Awakened, her big attack is a magic attack, but it is not type. She will not trigger the dragon's aura. She can stack burnaways and reduce the enemy's intellect and power by 150 points. If she's Stellar Awakened, she can invert. So the Death Eater, he buffs himself. He does a critical magical crit rate of 100%. And that might get inverted. I don't know. But either way, she can reduce damage, and perhaps equally important, she can provide an MP regen. Assuming that she's not the character that's drained at the start of the fight, she can cast Iridescent Blessing and get an MP regen going, so whoever is drained can restore their mana somewhat quickly over time. And she can help with survivability. So Yuna, Stellar Awakened, particularly if you have her True Manifests covered and everything, she could probably substitute in very easily for one of the characters.
Me?
She could probably replace Xianhua. She might be able to replace Iffy as well. And that is because she has the ability to stick pain on all enemies and ignores target resistance. So she could basically be the pain setter instead of Iffy. Other characters that might work, when I was kind of looking through, a few others kind of stood out. Kuchinawa does earth-type attacks, so he won't trigger the aura. And he, if you have him Stellar Awakened, can provide a very, very powerful debuff. That paired with Yuna's burn aways might be enough to really seriously reduce incoming damage. So he might be a thought. Let's see, who else? Oh, those are all my level 60s. Flammopolis AS. She does water type, so she will trigger the aura, but she does have a few skills that might help. Her Modal Galder improves int speed for all characters. Staff type characters get a damage boost. MP improves. If it's the first 3 turns, the buff doubles, so it's 100%, 100%. Not sure if that's 60% or not, but so her Modal Galder, if you cast it on turn number 3, it lasts for 5 turns as long as you don't recast it after that, and as long as the boss doesn't remove your debuffs. Her Modal Galder could last the first 8 turns with a very, very powerful buff. And then La Mer Archon will trigger the aura, but reduce power, intellect, and speed if done in the first 3 turns. Might make survivability at the start of the fight a little easier. And then Baptisto Soul, not that you care about the water type attack improvement, but increased magic damage based on MP. That kind of is similar to the blood contracts and all of that. So she could be a replacement. Probably not as good as Yuna, but she is someone to consider. And then Impel, free character, Stellar Awakened, so you can boost up his health and everything a little bit if you need to, his stats. What he brings to the table, Crono Reversal, will deploy Magic Fate Stance. So he can deploy it once an Awakened one runs out. And then Extension, over time, party's power and intellect and speed will improve. Once his tactics levels hits 50, it can improve up to 75%. So he can buff, and then his Spiral Wand attack is not a type attack. It will not trigger the aura either. So he is someone to consider as well. So let's get Impel in, and let's get Flammopolis AS in. I don't know if a team like this would work. It's possible characters like a Xianhua and Yuna combination could really decrease the incoming damage. You would have to play around. I don't have the ability to anymore now that I've beaten the boss. But those characters might help you. Not saying they will. So if they don't work, sorry. I tried. I'm just kind of theory crafting at the moment. But those, as of June 2025, those would be the characters I would consider if you're missing one of the characters from my lineup that did work. So anyway, yay. We finally, after how many years, have beaten the Death Eater Lindwyrm. And I get 50 stones for all the trouble. Yay. Alright, well, I hope this video helps. Casual Crono, signing out.